I have the distinct privilege of opening the session this morning or this afternoon, the session on enterprise solutions, hardware and software, end-to-end solutions. I want to just open up for about 2 or 3 minutes and just share with the group here what I would consider to be probably the most relevant legal issues that lawyers who are practicing in the space today are continually coming into contact with, what I think we could effectively call IoT on some level. Clearly, and I'm sure those of you who practice in this area, the buzzwords that you're probably hearing continually is privacy and data security. Privacy and data security. As products, both software and hardware, increasingly become connected and are increasingly connecting data, collecting data, processing data, transmitting data from every imaginable source, that very reality is triggering or will trigger significant legal issues that sometimes are addressed, but many times are not. For example, to the extent, and it's amazing whether it's a self-driving automobile, whether it's a smart fridge, a smart thermostat, a smart doorbell, the actual collection of data and the way in which the data is personalized, can trigger, for example, in the EU, data compliance obligations under the new data privacy laws that are going to go into effect later this year, called the GDPR, right? So could you imagine that a doorbell or a doorbell manufacturer that provides a connected hosted solution now has to be thinking about, wow, I'm collecting all this data, data that could potentially identify individuals, and to the extent that I'm selling this particular product in Berlin, in France, in Sweden, and I'm collecting this data, I now have all of these privacy obligations that I never imagined I would have with a seemingly, commonplace object. So, we're dealing with this issue all the time, where we're sitting down with manufacturers and product designers, and we're asking them, data map all of the data you're collecting and figure out what your data obligations are. The next topic I want to just briefly touch upon is hardware. I want to move to hardware. So hardware brings up a whole host of very, very interesting issues. For example, the manufacturing of hardware. To the extent, for example, that you have a very unique proprietary product, have you thought about protecting, or have you protected the intellectual property in those countries in which you're manufacturing the product? China, Korea, everybody's filing patents in the US, but in our experience, representing clients around the world, if you're manufacturing in China, you actually may want to get a patent application at least on file in China before you actually sign your manufacturing contract. As strange as it may seem, you can actually enforce intellectual property in China these days. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, never, not a chance. And today, there actually are intellectual property cases that are being brought and won by companies doing business all over the world. Another issue that's worth bringing up is product liability. So we all think of product liability as, you buy a car and it turns out to be a lemon. You buy a toaster and it has a short fuse. But as hardware, as products become increasingly connected, I am foreseeing situations in which a data breach, a hacking, may actually, in the not too distant future, be considered a product liability issue. If the product itself was designed with insufficient data security around it, if the product was designed with adequate data security, but the security didn't keep up with the needs, the demands, the rollout of the device, and the device is hacked and people's data is misappropriated, I believe we're going to see cases where that's going to be considered a product liability case with statutory damages, class action lawsuits, and other damages that follow. So that's, I think, a very interesting issue. I'll just finish with two last points, and then I'll hand it off to the folks who you really came to hear, because whoever comes into a room like this to hear a lawyer speak, other than other lawyers, interestingly. The second to last point I want to bring up is the enforceability of contracts, and particularly the end user contracts. As business professionals, we sign contracts all the time. And when we do sign contracts, right, we have the opportunity to read the contract, think about the contract, negotiate the contract, and make an educated decision whether or not we want to sign that contract. And we may walk away from as many contracts as we actually sign. When you're using these smart devices, these connected devices, right, they all have end user terms and conditions attached to them, right? And you press OK because you want to start to use that smart toaster, that smart fridge as quickly as possible without ever reading the contract. How enforceable are those contracts? So from the manufacturer's standpoint, I have a real concern that as problems develop, and they will, because that's the nature of our world, the nature of manufacturing, as these products develop and people are damaged by them, they're going to say, hey, I didn't really sign that contract. I didn't really understand what I was signing. And I think, especially when you do this on a global scale, right? And it's effectively the same contract you're having somebody in China, Hungary, the US, and Zimbabwe sign. Granted, it may be translated into different languages. Is that really an enforceable contract? And I think manufacturers are going to see pushback in the not too distant future over these issues. And then the last point I want to bring up is kind of like an insurance type issue, which is as our products become more interconnected, and one element or one piece of the puzzle fails, right? There's a company here, for example, that's developed next generation Tupperware, okay, that is connected to AWS for their hosting, is connected to Alexa for the ability to instruct and both receive data and also command data. To the extent that these are critical features or functionality within these new age devices, and one of those pieces in the puzzle fails, what effect will that have on the core technology? And again, to the extent that that has very far-reaching implications, does a company's insurance cover that? Would that be considered business interruption insurance, for example, where you didn't do anything but simply connected through APIs, through Bluetooth, through whatever, into other devices that's caused a disruption or a failure of your device? And I think, again, that's another area that's going to be interesting to see unfold as to what insurance coverages will or will not cover as our world becomes more and more interconnected. So thank you for your time, and I'm going to hand it off to the portfolio companies who are now going to talk about their amazing technology. Thanks.
Thank you, Adam. I would like to welcome Eran from Corephotonics.
Timer already running. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eran Breman. I run marketing and business development for Corephotonics. In the next 7 or 8 minutes, I'll try to squeeze in a quick introduction to Corephotonics, what we do, how we do it, and also I'll try to mix some updates from the past 12 months. So a quick glance at Corephotonics. We were founded in 2012. 2012 was a unique year in the mobile imaging space. iPhone 4, iPhone 5 were already out there. Mobile imaging turned out to be extremely good, and we at Corephotonics understood that mobile imaging is going to hit a wall in a couple of years' time, and that led us to this invention of using dual cameras in your smartphone. So that was year 2012. We started pitching this to a bunch of OEMs, and the response was not good, not interested. It's too big, it's too costly, it's too much power consumption. But we were quite persistent, and then a couple of years later, 2014, First, dual camera smartphones, then 2016, smartphones with our technology inside. Last year, 2017, 50 million devices powered by our IP have shipped. Thanks. We have raised so far $50 million. Of course, our crowd was one of the first investors, but then others such as Samsung, MediaTek, Foxconn, etc. Our business model is a licensing business model. So we license the technology. We are 60 people company. We don't manufacture phones or cameras or components within cameras. We only license these types of technologies. Everything that's related to dual camera, we license to various vendors in the mobile imaging ecosystem. So quickly explaining about why dual cameras in smartphones and actually why dual cameras in general. The main limitations that we have today in single camera smartphones are here. There's a lack of depth, right? You don't have depth information unless you have two cameras, stereoscopic depth. Not enough light information. We all know you get into a dark room, you get lousy pictures, grainy pictures, low resolution with your smartphone. And then I would say also the optical zoom that's clearly lacking. You know, we start pitch to zoom and digital zoom actually on our smartphones, and you end up with crappy images. Now, quickly, I would say there are three types of dual cameras being used today in smartphones. What we call a non-symmetrical, which only solves this depth type of limitation in smartphones today. RGB and mono cameras, which are widely used by Huawei smartphones and a few others, where in addition to depth, you also get low light, better low light sensitivity. And then the last one, and this is the one that Corephotonics is really focused on, and this is where most of our innovation is on the optical zoom type of dual cameras, which actually solve all these different problems and are being used in all the different flagship smartphones you see today, the iPhones, Samsung Note 8, and soon also the Galaxy S9, Oppo R11, Razer phones, and a bunch of others. So what we provide is that complete set of offerings for dual cameras. So we've decided to take a holistic approach when it comes to dual cameras. It's not just the hardware or the software, it's everything related to these dual cameras. So I would say optics on the right side here, the actuators for the camera, which do the optical image stabilization and autofocus, the camera modules themselves, the software that runs on the main application processor in your smartphones, and then calibration of these dual cameras. So a very wide set of IP and a very unique set of engineers that are spread around many different disciplines, optics, mechanics, software, image quality, algorithms, etc. All these are protected by more than 100 patents that we have worldwide. These are some of the benefits that we offer to our licensees or OEMs using our dual cameras. I've mentioned optical zoom, so up to 5x optical zoom, and we're going to see this coming later this year in 2018. Much more light, and then I would also mention the depth, or excuse me, the Z height of the camera. You know, these cameras have to fit into your smartphone, and nowadays they have to fit behind your screen. So really 5mm cameras are very difficult to achieve, and we are there. A couple of examples for you. A digital zoom on the left side. I think the difference, well, the light here is really bad, but you can still see the difference left and right very clearly. What would be a digital zoom versus our optical zoom, or any kind of optical zoom you can get with latest smartphones using our technology today. The bokeh effect, you know, different companies call it different names. Digital bokeh. Others call it narrow depth of field or portrait mode in your iPhone, for example. Again, by having dual cameras, you can get the depth information and then very easily blur the background and have this depth or a bokeh effect. Smooth camera transition, you can see it here. This is more tricky than you would imagine, since we have two cameras, a wide camera and right next to it a telephoto camera, and we have to very smoothly transition from one of these cameras to the other so that the user experience is feels like a continuous zoom, while in practice it is not continuous. These are some of the phones enabled by our IP today, and a bunch others I still cannot mention. Business model-wise, I've mentioned we have quite a lot of IPs in different domains, and that means we have to fit all these different kinds of devices. Okay. Thank you very much. That's so bad. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, let's welcome to the stage Damien from Consumer Physics.
Okay. So, hi everybody. Thank you for being here. So, I'm here today to talk about the SIO. It's the first material analyzer that you can basically hold in the palm of your hand, analyze materials everywhere, anytime. Affordable, portable, and connected. This is basically what we bring to the market for different type of verticals, from agriculture and food and seeds and crops, all the way to pharmaceuticals and medicine and so on. Our solution, our product, our platform basically is composed of two main components, put it this way, or three. The first is this. This is what enables the analysis, right? This is a spectrometer that actually can sample materials with light and get this information, this signature, up to the cloud for analysis. Then the second part of our solution is our cloud-based system. It's a data collection, data analysis with machine learning that collects the data, analyzes it, and then sends back the analysis result back to the phone, so the user can instantly know what they're analyzing, what's the result of the analysis, and so on and so forth. Of course, people who have access to the overall data can use this data later on to make better decisions. So if you know the quality of the cornfields in the United States, you can take much better decision in pricing them, in commercializing the crops, just by knowing the quality in California versus Milwaukee versus Minnesota, and so on and so forth. We are very much focused today on the food and agriculture supply chain. We have a huge amount of value that we can provide to the whole supply chain, from consumer or retailers all the way up to the farm and seed companies. We're working on analysis of crops or grains like corn and soy and wheat and rice and so on. And we are enabling what's up until now was only possible in a laboratory. We bring this capability now to the field, allowing farmers to take better decisions, to actually empower them when they face the next step in the supply chain and so on. And then we are enabling the aggregators, the large ag companies, all the way down to the retailers when they measure either, the ag companies would be interested in animal nutrition, the retailers would be interested in fruits quality, right? But everything can be done with the same hardware, with the same software platform that we provide through our cloud system. One very powerful tool that we have is actually the fact that we can trace the data, the history of the data, the great variety of data that we collect. We have today more than 30,000 units spread out in the world, from Alaska to New Zealand, measuring anything from fruits, vegetables, to even asphalt roads in different locations in Europe. And then we can allow the users to actually track this information, access it in real time, and make better decisions. Again, I mentioned we are focusing on food and agriculture supply chain, but we also look at other verticals, slowly engaging those as well. especially pharmaceuticals. A lot of action going on in counterfeit pharmaceuticals, and the ability to detect counterfeit medication is very important in all of the world, by the way, not in a specific country. It goes from the United States to China and all along the way in Africa and Europe and so on. And also, another example would be law enforcement, helping law enforcement personnel to actually detect drugs and illicit materials when they are actually at the field and now having to wait 24, 48 hours for the material to actually be analyzed at the laboratory. One very important part of our product is the fact that it's open for developers. So obviously we are not able to develop all of these products. It's way beyond our capability. But we have opened the platform for developers, so a developer company can now purchase developer kits, build their own databases, build their own models and applications, and actually provide those to customers. One very good example is no, not this. Let me go back. So one very good example would be Cargill. Cargill is the largest ag company in the world, basically, and they have used our developer kit to develop their own dairy farm application. Today, they are providing our solution to dairy farmers in the United States, measuring animal feed, providing their customer with a better service. We're going to see that more and more in the agriculture world with different agriculture companies, but I expect us to see that as well in the pharma and law enforcement field and many more. At the end of the day, the way we see spectroscopy, we are actually democratizing optical spectroscopy and material analysis. And it goes way beyond the current market of spectroscopy. Just like computers, at the beginning we had only mainframes and then PCs, and we thought, maybe people thought like, okay, this is the limit of what we can do, but by introducing democratization of technology, basically increases the market available for this kind of technology, and this is exactly how we see material analysis and spectroscopy. We see it growing immensely by taking this technology away from the lab and down to the field, allowing people, consumers, prosumers, professionals to use it in different locations and basically gain more information, gain more power. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. I'd like to call Tal from VocalZoom onto the stage, please.
Hello, my name is Tal. I'm from VocalZoom. VocalZoom is providing a solution for voice. As you know, probably some of you heard already, voice is becoming the primary user interface in many applications today. We hear about Siri, we hear about Google Voice. Voice is kind of a holy grail in human-machine interface. Especially in the automotive today with connected cars and with the roadmap to autonomous cars. I'm sorry about my voice. Today with all the connected cars and going towards autonomous cars, we see a lot of migration of connectivity, data and services that comes into the car, very similar to what we have in our smartphones. And this market requires a much better user interface in order to monetize all the data and services inside the car. Using voice in the car is not just about user interface. It's not just like a keyboard when you want to activate something in the car. When you're using voice with a virtual assistant, you actually provide information. Most information we have today about passengers in cars is actually about the car. We know the speed, we know the location. We don't know a lot about the passenger. In the smartphone, for example, anything you do is being monitored. Advertisers know that this smartphone is related to a certain person. They follow what you're doing on the browser. They follow what you're doing in other applications, and they provide you services. They get information about you, and they provide services back that are personalized to what you need or what you want. In the car, it's not exactly the same. There's no direct connection between the passenger and the car. And this is why voice is very important. Voice allows the car to ask you questions. You will see in the future personal assistants in the car asking you questions. They'll ask you, do you want to stop in Starbucks now because I know that you drank coffee there a week ago? Or do you remember you have a meeting and maybe you should take a different route? So voice in the car is a huge business. And in the connected car, this is something that's happening today. Autonomous car and shared riding is something that will come very shortly in the future. One of the most critical components to monetize data and services in the car is user ID or passenger ID. The ability to authenticate the identity of the passenger inside the car allows those data and services to personalize, allows those service providers to personalize the data and services in every car you get in. When you get into the car, they need to know if it's the parents or the children. They need to know if it's your car or someone else's car, because if you're using car sharing in the future, you might get into a different car. So having the ability to authenticate or to know the identity of the passenger is a critical component in the automotive industry today. And one of the things that is clearly seen is that you're not seeing any fingerprints coming in. You're not seeing any other types of biometrics, because voice is the only type of voice of biometrics that you can use in the car. It relates to many factors. It relates to robustness to movement in the car. It relates to the ability to work in challenging environment in terms of lighting and in terms of noise coming from the road or from the wind. Voice is the only technology that can allow good biometrics inside the car. So voice biometrics will be a critical component in the automotive in the next few years. VocalZoom provides a solution for voice, and especially for voice biometrics, that is, first of all, immune to background noise. The technology allows to use the voice interface without any effect of background noise. Now, when we speak about background noise, we don't speak just about noise from the road or noise from the car. We speak also about noise from other people speaking in the car. We speak about radio. We speak about anything that happens in the car, like the wipers that click or something else. So VocalZoom provides a completely noise-immune technology that can allow using voice inside the car. The second part is that we're fraud immune. The voice biometrics we provide is immune to any types of fraud in terms of trying to record your voice, mimic your voice, synthesize a voice that sounds like you. And the reason for that is that our technology measures the voice physically from your body. And you'll see this in a minute. We're not using a simple microphone, and this is why we can be much more secure in terms of fraud. And the last part is accuracy. VocalZoom, since we're noise immune, since we're fraud immune, and since we're measuring the information directly from your body and not from sound waves in the air, we have the ability to improve the accuracy in a very meaningful way. And of course, in speech recognition or when you try to detect words, sometimes you can use the context, or you can understand what the person said, even if you didn't understand any word, all the words. But in voice biometrics, you need to be sure that you're recognizing the right person. There's no game here about the accuracy. VocalZoom developed a very small, very low-cost sensor that can measure voice from facial vibration. What the sensor is doing is actually measuring vibrations on your face, either on the throat or on the neck or on the cheeks, on the nose. Those vibrations correlate completely to the voice inside your mouth. The voice inside your mouth is not contaminated with noise. So when we look at the vibration on your face, we actually hear the voice inside the mouth, which is completely immune to noise. And this is how we do, this is how we improve speech recognition. This is how we do voice biometrics. The sensor can work today up to 1 meter, which means that we can embed that inside the car. You don't need to put it on your head. You can put it in the mirror. You can put it in the dashboard or any other place in the car. And this is why it's very robust to the car environment. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to welcome San from Intendu.
Okay. So hi, everyone. Intendu is a brain therapy solution that aims to improve in-clinic treatment and enable people to rehabilitate at home. Yeah. So, as many of you know probably, there are hundreds of millions of people around the world suffer from various brain impairments, including traumatic brain injury, stroke, age-related mental decline, neurological and mental disorders. These impairments limit the ability of these people to perform normal and independent living, including things like driving or preparing a meal, are impossible for them. The current therapy and treatment, at least in the acquired brain injury field, which is the trauma and stroke, which is our first market where we're already operating now, the current treatment is basically you have a rehabilitation of a very short period of few weeks, usually, or a few months in like the more developed countries. And after these few weeks or months, you're released home, you have a few sessions at home, and then you're on your own. And actually, I know it from my personal experience. That's a long story. But we in our family experience this. And it's basically you're thrown after a very short period where, as a scientist, and I'm a neuroscientist, I know that if you continue training, you can improve. So it doesn't make any sense that today, with all the amazing technologies, we can't provide some solution that will allow to enhance this treatment and then lengthen it, because today it's short, of course, because it's very labor intensive. What happens is, in the clinic, you have therapists that do one-on-one sessions, and this is very costly. And after that, the health system cuts the costs and just throws you out there. Of course, there are cognitive training solutions, but the solutions out there today are not suitable and not effective for people with brain impairments. Basically, Intendu is a gaming platform that is designed specifically for brain training. It includes body motion, because body motion enhances brain plasticity. And it includes realistic environments like you see here. This enables transfer of the learning to real life. We challenge the people in these safe environments, and the games are designed to automatically adapt in real time to the needs of the patients. This is our smart AI engine that designs automatically a personalized experience for each patient based on their abilities, whether it's physical abilities or cognitive abilities. So the three key pillars of our solution are, first, the integration of motion into the cognitive training, which is unique. We're actually the first holistic brain training platform that combines mind and body training within one solution that trains the brain. The other key, really unique factor is our very smart AI engine that adapts the games in real time, as I mentioned, and also the fact that the games include realistic experiences, as you saw, dynamic things like in food, cars. It's not squares and circles and very simplistic things. Of course, we perform research all the time to validate and really see the effectiveness of our solution. We're quite young, so we recently published our first paper where we show efficacy in people training at home. This is a sort of first paper. Of course, we're continuing enlarging the sample size of this study, performing a randomized control trial and also other studies. Our product has already been used in leading rehabilitation institutions around the world, including top rehabilitation institutions in the US, like Rusk, Shepherd, if someone is in the field and knows them. The product is, or the technology is suitable not only for brain injuries. As I mentioned, there are many types of brain impairments. It's applicable for all the impairments I mentioned. And our plan is to go into elderly and age-related cognitive decline, and later mental and neurological disorders. Our team is very experienced in rehabilitation, neuroscience, healthcare, and of course in gaming and in AI. And our goal is to deliver effective and affordable rehabilitation to everyone who needs it, everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome Hanan from Nanorep.
Is there a... Okay, cool. Hi, everyone. Hanan Friedman from Nanorep. Today we'll be talking a little bit about the rise of the bots, or in other words, what we like to refer to as surviving the bot hype. Essentially what this means is that, you know, chatbots are something that are very... Sorry, can you hear me now? It's better. Chatbots are a very hot topic today in today's market. And when an organization, especially an enterprise organization, decides that they want to implement a self-service solution like a chatbot, there are a number of factors that they need to take into account. And to be completely honest, it can be very overwhelming because this is a very, very crowded market. So we'll be talking about a couple of points today, a couple of pointers on the things you should look out for. So if we look at messaging apps, okay, they actually become something that are far surpassing social media. Okay, people are becoming more and more affiliated with using the conversational experience and typing along the way. And chatbots, like I said, are a very hot topic. Everyone has them. It's a new way customers can interact with a brand through social media and messaging apps. Everyone has them. Everyone has implemented them. You can see all the biggest brands and any enterprise organization you can talk to today will all say, yeah, we started implementing a chatbot, but we're not really sure what it's supposed to do. When Facebook came out with the chatbot API, which was March of 2016, and this is true until April 2017, there have been over 100,000 different chatbots out there. But something that no one will tell you is that over 70% of these bots are not in use. Okay, which basically means that they are a very cool gimmick, but what kind of value do they really bring to the organization? So, like I said. We'll be discussing a little bit about bots in the enterprise, and if you're an organization that's looking into implementing chatbots or any kind of virtual assistance or self-service, these are the things you should be looking out for. So the first is the fact that this is a very interesting research that was done by Gartner, that if today over 50% of interactions between a customer and a brand happen with the agent in the call center or support center, by 2022, that number will be decreased down to 15. Okay, and in essence, what that means is that most organizations are moving from what we call a human-assisted and technology-enabled way into what's called a technology-assisted and human-enabled. Okay, so that pyramid is being flipped upside down, and the real question is, you know, are you ready for the big day? So the first step in identifying the kind of solution you're really out there to look for is by identifying the type of customers you have, right? If you were just to implement a chatbot on your site, you're only tailored to one very specific demographic. However, if you gave my grandfather a chatbot and said to him, you can book a flight with this or order pizza, he'd be like, I don't know what you want me to do with this. I have no idea how to use it. So when we segment the different types of interactions that customers have with the brand, we'll notice that it's basically divided into these 4 quadrants, right? You'll either have what's called explicit questions all the way on the left side on the x-axis, what's known today as FAQs, and all the way on the right is the interactive conversation, which is where the chatbot resides. But if you look at the different quadrants, you'll see that customers need certain options for self-service. They need a guided task completion, or a personalized engagement, or just customer dialogue in order to find general information, or just approach FAQs. The problem is that if each one of these solutions is a siloed solution, then customers will have a very hard time getting consistent experience on one hand, and on the other, businesses will have a very hard time maintaining this type of solution. However, if everything was comprised into one single solution, we're talking about a different ballgame. The next aspect is understanding business goals. Okay, what type of goals are you looking to achieve with applying a chatbot or some kind of virtual assistant on your website? Is it cost reduction? Are you looking to improve customer experience? Are you looking to improve agent productivity? These are all questions that need to be asked before embarking on that journey. So in essence, what does Nanorep do? Nanorep is actually a portfolio company of our crowd. We were recently acquired this past August by a US company called LogMeIn. And basically what we provide is what's called a holistic self-service solution. So on one hand, we're able to be implemented on any touch point throughout the customer journey, either it be the web or the mobile device or social media, or we even support speech-to-text or ticketing. And we'll be able to provide what's called able to let customers provide a natural conversation when they interact with a brand, then provide them with what's called a contextual and personalized response. And if needed, we'll show them in the right direction. If they need to escalate to an agent, we'll understand exactly what their needs and wants are based on the type of customer and based on type of query, and we'll help them escalate to the right agent with the right skills. On the back end, okay, we provide business insights. And what that essentially means is that when many organizations build up their website, nobody goes over to me, the customer, and says, hey, Hanan, how would you like us to build our site so that it's easy for you to navigate through? And what sort of content would you like us to put there so that you can easily consume it, right? Businesses build up websites based on the best practice in the industry, or maybe times based on their best guess. And the idea is that you no longer need to guess, because Nanorep will provide you with a dashboard that'll tell you exactly where you need to improve. Through these, what we call the voices of the customer, these blue and red tiles, you'll see the exact questions customers are asking, where they encountered a positive experience, where they encountered a negative one. And in turn, this will help you drastically scale up the knowledge base to something that's actionable and relevant to what customers are actually asking. Thank you very much for your time. We're over here at booth number 38. If you want to carry the conversation, I'd be more than happy to.
Thank you, Hanan. I'd like to now present Kobe from Unispectral as our last presenter for this session.
Okay. Last but not least, I hope. Hi, my name is Kobe Sela, CEO for Unispectral. Thank you for still being here. There are about 10 billion mobile-based cameras today, and in 2020 we will see around 30 billion additional cameras, IoT cameras, that will be within your home, in your car, at drones, robots, etc. The camera industry has done an amazing job creating a very cost-effective module with wonderful image quality. Unispectral is addressing a very important shift that exists within the industry, which is that these modules over the last 40 years have been developed for humans. And so a human person is looking at the world in three colors, red, green, and blue. If you are looking into more and more use cases where machine learning, artificial intelligence need to take place, then this information is extremely limited in nature, and our ability to decipher on a computer vision system what it is that we are analyzing is limited. So we are addressing this issue specifically. So this is a wonderful picture of a pair, and this would be a picture of the same pair using a very similar or identical CMOS sensor and existing lens system. What we see in this picture is actually going beyond the red, green, and blue. The CMOS sensor by itself can look into additional infrared ranges, and the picture here is sampling this image in about 20 ranges of sampling as opposed to the 3, which represent the red, green, and blue. And so what you see here is about 30x more information based on the existing solution that we have today. And now you can allow a machine vision-like system to derive much more data out of this picture. If I take a look at this new picture, the leaves that I have here can give me an indication as to when this plum leave the tree. If I take a look at the plum itself, I can understand better what is its shelf life based on this information. And this is just one of the examples. So really, from our perspective, breaking the red, green, and blue barrier is essential in taking machine learning and artificial intelligence into the next level and allow those systems to draw conclusions which are much more interesting and to generate additional business which is not really existing today. That's what Unispectral is solving. How do we go about doing so? So this is your typical hyperspectral camera as it stands today. It uses the same range, but it is extremely complex and very expensive. We have started our solution from your classic high-volume CMOS-based camera, exactly like the one that you have on your mobile handset or in your car today, or in your security system today. This is a CMOS-based camera. This is the cost range. The lens is a plastic-made lens. And this is a module that can be manufactured in a huge volume and generates outstanding quality as it stands for red, green, and blue images. Our unique and disruptive technology is actually an optical filter based on this size, and it's implemented in a technology called MEMS, which is microelectrical machines, which is a technology that is used today to manufacture CMOS-based processors and can create a very cost-effective system. And what we have implemented here is an optical filter. Now we can take this optical filter, place it on top of the module that you've seen before, and now we have a system where this optical filter, and is of course electronically controlled, can now decide which wavelength goes and is sampled by this CMOS sensor, and also define exactly what is the right timing for such an exposure event to happen. So now we have much more control compared to what we've had before over what level of information gets to be absorbed. And now we can get to a point where the same capabilities that that complex camera could have created is available within a very, very cost-effective system in a very, very small form factor. And with the right volume, the additional increment of the cost is less than $2, which is really creating a very dramatic shift in our capability to analyze the world around us using the existing solutions that we have today, as far as the CMOS technology, as far as the optical capabilities. How do we turn, and where do you see the market needs for such a technology? The first immediate use case is actually a dedicated computer vision camera that is already available today in the first or the flagship mobile handsets that you have around you. The iPhone 10 is using a dedicated computer vision to create a Face ID system, and our technology can actually improve dramatically the capabilities of such a system in outdoor conditions. In addition, this now is a platform where an arms race is actually developing, and if you look and listen carefully to the latest Galaxy S9 announcements, they are already explaining that they're going to use more than one biometrics use case, which will mean that they would need the flexibility, such as our filter provides, to generate more than one functionality on the biometrics front end. And we already see use cases such as iris scan, which are important not just for biometrics, but also for identity. And therefore, you can not only prove that you are you next to your phone, but also sign with a personalized identity. And this is very important for several geographies and very, very important for banking and financial use cases. From there, we can take our technology and use it for computational photography, which is the ability to analyze material and to provide information about what it is exactly that you are looking into. If we take this into automotive industry, you can analyze a puddle on the road and figure out whether it is oily or not oily. In a virtual reality, you can actually decide which are the materials that you see in front of you. In addition to that, we see use cases for well-being and cosmetics. We talked before about the fact that mobile handsets are going to introduce a computer vision in the front side of the solution, and therefore we see that, as well as food and nutrition and counterfeit detection as use cases for our technology. Thank you very much.